Sonic X Episode 49. We start out with Scarlet saying that Sonic's fans are inspired by Sonic to make a freedom movement and set track records. That was pointless. We already know that. One of the robot sidekicks say they like working for Chris's family, as we see them using hedge clippers on a small tree, and one of them says Chris is a nice kid, and Tanaka falls in a ditch they dug earlier. Boku complains about being fed a tree stump by Eggman, while saying that Deku and Boko's food wasn't good, but Eggman's was worse. Why does he think Boku would eat that and get nutrition from it? Eggman says he wouldn't take them back anyways, even if they begged, and I hope he's not lying. Chris's mom talks about the freedom movement caused by Sonic fans. Wouldn't that result in dictators being overthrown? It seems so pointless in good countries. At least they remind you that Chris's mom can't cook again, which is good since she's more of a character. Sam complains that the freedom movement is causing more people to break the speed limit, and he wastes our time recapping his history with Sonic and lampshading that he never thought they'd become buddies. Why is my time being wasted with them chasing a speeding car? This show is so unfocused. The speeding car goes past a railing and falls off a bridge, and you'd think this would guarantee his death. But as I expected, he's saved out of nowhere. Sonic literally just flies in a blue blur to save him. Why couldn't it be Tails? Or Rouge? The show will stop at nothing to make Sonic siphon all the competence from his friends. Seriously. Why'd the car drive through a railing anyways? Wouldn't the drivers see what's coming up? At least the guy lampshades that he can't go home fast without a car, and asks if he's supposed to crawl home. But then our time is wasted by Sonic racing Sam, and he flies over the city once again like in the first episode, which I'm sure is just reused footage. At least they remember that the moon is the egg moon. It's a bit of a shame that Earth will always have to deal with that half-metal moon thanks to Eggman though. Chris tries to write a report on what his biggest dream is. He sees something fall in the pool, and our time is wasted by him remembering when he first met Sonic. They'll stop at nothing to waste their time with reused footage. This time though, he sees a regular cat climb out of the pool, and he's disappointed that it's not Sonic. Then it's revealed that Earth and Mobius were one and the same, and they're beginning to join again. And the two separate timelines are going to join and are already doing so. And this will threaten to freeze time forever because the two timelines will cancel each other out. Huh? Where did this woman get this theory from? Well, to be fair, it was suspicious that Mobius kept sending stuff to Earth for no reason, like the Mystic Ruins and the Child Garden and its animals. But still, this is so confusing. What took the President so long to decide to round up the Chaos Emeralds for Sonic? Wouldn't that be common sense right away? Because you don't want anyone evil to get a hold of them? Chris drops his plate and breaks unhappily because he learns that the President's going to send Sonic back home, and his unsettlingly blank expression and dejected tone makes it pretty obvious that he's broken from this. It reminded me of Sally right away. Remember when she went through a stoic phase where she bottled up all of her emotions? And all that started because she thought she was going to lose Sonic to Mina. Chris is more justified though because he thinks he's actually going to lose Sonic, while Sally would have still had Sonic around. I found this behavior pretty engaging. I guess it makes sense that a lot of Sonic fans just thought he was a whiny wuss and hated him, because God forbid he show a lot of emotion and show that he really is attached to Sonic, right? But as someone fascinated by psychology, I always love seeing stuff like this in fiction. Chris insists that Sonic has to stay here, making the excuse that he's a hero for the world. Never mind the fact that he only had to be a hero because Eggman's here and Eggman has to leave too. I feel bad for Chris here actually, because of how passionate he is about how angry he is at this. He briefly says that Eggman's responsible for the imminent apocalypse and takes off because he can't handle losing Sonic. Even though Sonic is an antisocial who constantly ignores them. I could understand if he was upset at losing literally any of Sonic's friends, but Sonic himself? He barely spends any time with them. It's such obvious main character preference from the writers. Why would Mobius fusing with Earth stop time? This would only make sense if Mobius' time was running backwards to try to get to the same time as Earth, and so the backwards time merging with the forwards time would result in time freezing because time would be trying to go backwards and forwards at the same time at the same rates. So the timelines would cancel each other out. That's the apocalypse scenario that happened in Archie when Knothole was 3 hours ahead in time, and Eggman was trying to make its time go backwards to undo that. But if it's happening on its own, you'd think the time going backwards thing would stop naturally on its own because it'd only start happening to make the two timelines fuse into one. And after that, it would have outlived its purpose. So shouldn't everything be fine? Time shouldn't keep going backwards in one planet because the two dimensions would be one. So it would go forwards again. Because there would only be one time which would just go forwards as normal. But I guess they don't want to take the risk of assuming that's how things are going to go when for all they know, it really could cause time to freeze. But why would it do that? After the two dimensions become one, why would they still keep having separate times from each other? Chuck says heartwarmingly that he would like the idea of spending his whole life engineering with Tails at his side and never growing older. But then right after that, he says that in a world of frozen time, the pursuit of scientific knowledge would somehow be meaningless because nothing could ever change in the world. Every day would be the same. But why would he ever think that he'd even be able to move in a world frozen in time? There would be no day because no time would pass. Why is he talking as if he could do stuff with Tails as an engineer when time is frozen? Chris begs Deco and Boko to take him to see Eggman because he's so desperate to make it so that Sonic can't take off on him. I hope this isn't an excuse to force these robots back to Eggman. They're clearly much happier without him. The robots say they don't know where Eggman is, and then they actually do link together and make a beacon which summons Bokoon to them. Bokoon complains about the bad cooking of Eggman, and he's bribed into doing what they want with the offer of food. Tanaka, justifying why he couldn't follow Chris properly, apologizes that he couldn't follow Chris in the dark, and says he doesn't deserve to be under their employment. Chuck figures out what Chris is up to, and says he should let him face Eggman so he can accept the truth. At least Chris is being an interesting character here because his actions are entirely guided by a higher amount of stress and emotional turmoil at something, to the point where he's in total denial of what's going on. He accuses Eggman of threatening to freeze time, but all this does is give Eggman the idea to do it, and he lies that he is responsible. I actually laughed at Eggman lying to him about it. Chris smiles at first, but fortunately goes back to threatening him. At least the robots are concerned for his well-being, and that's why they're stopping him from fighting Eggman, because fighting wouldn't help. But still, why can't he just punch Eggman? Completely contradicting himself since he just said that the time freezing was his idea, Eggman reveals that he has to let Sonic get sent home to keep time from freezing because he can't get anything done in a frozen world. I don't understand why time would freeze. Penders wrote this better. Didn't it make more sense that the fusing of the two worlds would destroy both of them? Because they get telefragged together. Making time freeze instead is just convoluted. Best case scenario, Earth gets bigger. It's already got the Mystic Ruins in it just fine. Presumably all that happened was a part of Mobius replaced a part of Earth. But they probably got lucky that time and all it replaced was worthless wilderness with no buildings with people in it already. Considering that the Mystic Ruins and Angel Island showed up, wouldn't it make more sense if the fusing of the two worlds just made one planet have more continents on it? The same thing happened in Fleetway when Chinazzar and Mobius fused together. Chris gets taunted by Eggman about how clingy he is to Sonic and runs away crying, and Deco and Boko feel sorry for him and arbitrarily don't go after him to escape from Eggman the first chance they get. Sure, they promise Bokoon food, but they better leave right after that. At least Eggman's sympathetic for once when he says goodbye to him, and he says it when Chris is gone so he won't hear him. The story ends with Chris coming home pretending to be feeling better, and Sonic discovering the Red Chaos Emerald when he's arbitrarily running around a mountain at night instead of sleeping. Most of this episode was just boring padding. It's nothing but a waste of time. Though it does make sense that they'd want to refresh your memory on how badly Chris wants to keep Sonic and his friends with them in a loneliness, since we didn't have that foreshadowed since, the start of the SE2 adaptation? So it's all about foreshadowing. But still, Chris doesn't want to lose Sonic, as opposed to one of the Sonic characters who does spend time with him. So he wastes time going to see Eggman and trying to threaten him into stopping his apocalypse scheme. What was going through his head when he thought he'd be able to stop him by himself? To be fair, if his parents had a microchip from birth, and that's why Tanaka found him in the ocean so easily, yes, I know that's from Sonic F, but it makes sense, so I'm going with it. Then Chris would have every reason to think that his family could track him down to Eggman's new base, with Chuck's technology, so Sonic would know where to go to stop Eggman's plan. He'd basically be luring Sonic to him, even if he would be a kidnapping victim in the meantime. I really hope Deco and Boko escape from Eggman though, because they have no reason not to go follow Chris when they've been happy apart from him. I was really impressed that the episode didn't make them look like incompetent idiots that the heroes would be better off without. After that stupid story in the X comic, I thought they'd suck at their jobs. But instead they were perfectly fine at clipping the hedges. Though they did make Tanaka fall in a ditch. But that's all that happened. And that sums up the whole episode. That's all that happened. Sonic X never ceases to amaze me with how it manages to drag out an extremely basic plot to a 20-minute long episode. Literally all that happened is that Chris doesn't want to lose Sonic and his friends, and he wastes time threatening Eggman because of it. And it's all because of an extremely forced premise. Out of nowhere, this woman thinks that Mobius is trying to freeze time by merging with Earth completely, as opposed to telefragging Earth with it instead, which would be much simpler. It's absolutely unacceptable that we aren't being told why the two worlds separated from each other. It feels like an afterthought because of it. It wouldn't even be that hard to explain. Just say that the humans and Mobians on Mobius were warring with each other, and eventually the humans want a planet for themselves. So they made Earth out of Mobius with the Chaos Emeralds as Chaos Control, because they couldn't find an inhabitable planet of their own. It's like how the Overlanders and Archie wanted a new planet after they lost the Great War. Why are Earth and Mobius trying to merge with each other? And now of all times? Are they literally occupying the same physical space but on different atomic vibrational levels? That's the only explanation I can come up with, and that's something Panda is introduced in the Knuckles comic. So even his writing makes more sense, because without that explanation, I don't know why the two completely separate universes, which would be who knows how far away from each other, would start merging, especially since they didn't even start doing that until recently. So why did Sonic warping to another planet change that? It's not like Chaos Control was used by Sonic to intentionally make that happen. More importantly, why did they think that making Sonic and his friends go home would stop the merging of the two worlds? What are they, desperate? I guess so. But who cares if they're from Mobius? They're just a small handful of Mobius origin individuals, so that shouldn't make a difference. Wouldn't it make more sense that this is happening because the Chaos Emeralds are on Earth? After all, they're magical cosmic keystones. And when the Soul Emeralds were in Sonic's dimension in Sonic Rush, that threatened to destroy it. So why aren't they thinking they have to send the Chaos Emeralds back? It's like they wrote themselves into a corner when they decided to make Sonic stay on Earth to humor Chris, because now his excuse for not coming home is gone, so they have to finagle a brand new excuse to go home that's stronger than the old one, when that excuse comes out of complete nowhere. Mobius sending parts of it to Earth is one thing, and that does help foreshadow this because it's been merging with it for a while. But why would it suddenly go from sending parts of it to Earth with no consequences to threatening to freeze time forever? We didn't have any temporal anomalies when Mystic Ruins and Angel Island showed up on Earth. It's not like they're in a separate temporal zone hours ahead in time. They just came there. They're just changing the rules on you and creating a continuity error to justify Sonic coming home. I think I remember that Chris is still a kid when he goes to Mobius, even though he became an adult on Earth, which would prove that Mobius is actually 10 or 15 years behind in time. So if Mobius has to realign in time with Earth, wouldn't that mean that its time would go into fast forward to do so? And to make things happen as fast as possible, wouldn't Earth's time go backwards at the same time? And thus by the time the two planets would be merged, Chris, Sonic, and all the others would be de-aged by like 5 or 10 years. But I guess the Sonic characters will get sent home before anything time-related could start to happen. This separate timelines thing just feels so arbitrary. So, rather than just being parallel universes, to keep it simple, they're in the same physical space, but they're in two different temporal zones from each other, like Knothole used to be in Archie. This is interesting to me, but it would be easier to enjoy if I knew what caused it to start being the case. My best bet is that the humans on Mobius use Chaos Control with the machine to make Earth as a separate planet for themselves. But the show seems to be too lazy to explain that. You'd think that Mobius would have this as a part of its history, and Tails would already know about it. But instead that random woman had to tell him something that Mobius didn't already know, when it was the origin planet, presumably since it has the Chaos Emeralds, which would be needed for such a monumental task. Wouldn't the people of Earth have the Earth's reason for creation written down in history because Earth would have formed that way, and not the way that our Earth formed? Why would they lose the amount of technology level that would let them make a machine that could create an entire planet for them, so that they could go back to being ancient people with no technology, just to build themselves back up to industrial level? Like, Earth's entire history would have to be completely different for this to work. Because that would mean that the people of Earth would be super advanced right from the start. Because they made a machine to create the planet, and so they would go into that planet super advanced. And again, apparently Mobius is 20 years behind Earth since Chris the Kid when he comes there. The two planets being separate times is just confusing and arbitrary. At least with the Twilight Cage, Krakow speculated that maybe they were just moving through time when they came to Mobius. So they're not really in separate times from each other. They're just going through a wormhole and therefore travel through time as well as space. Earth's history would have to be completely different for this to work because people advanced enough to create a chaos control machine to make Earth would stay advanced. Maybe those advanced people were the ones from the previous episode that made the fake sky underground, since they were ancient people after all. Those underground giant insects have to have been from Mobius, since there's no way they're from Earth. But it makes no sense for their descendants who populated the planet to go backwards in technology so Earth could have ancient times the same exact way we had, just for them to go to modern technology later. What, was there another Echidna-style technology ban to force civilization to go backwards? I guess so. What other explanation would there be? Again, the writing's so weird that even Penrose's idea is necessary to have this make sense. To be fair, it is our mistake to just assume Earth had the same exact history on Chris's world. We were never told the history of Chris's planet. Hell, we had a European castle in America on the Ghost episode. At least some people think it was America. So if it was, then its entire history has to be different. Of course, America would have been discovered and colonized by the people of Europe way faster on Chris's planet. The original inhabitants who came from Mobius would have the technology to colonize the entire planet really quickly, so they wouldn't have missed out on the Americas for hundreds of years. But the people of Earth would logically have in their ancient history how Earth was created and the colonization that followed, so Chris would know this already. This wouldn't just be a theory of some random woman out of nowhere. It'd be a well-known fact. If Earth was created for humans by humans, there's no way it would be in the ancient primordial state when it would first get created, because then the humans wouldn't have been able to go live in it right away. It would have had humans living on it for its entire history. And while this is fascinating to me, Chuck should be aware of the fact that this was how Earth always was if this has always been the case in Earth's history. They shouldn't need this woman to tell them that their ancestors lived on Mobius.